Well, it's interesting. My camera saw movement and it just started. I actually didn't press record, but here we are. Welcome back to the channel. I'm just a guy on my lunch break, aka Corey, and I wanted to do a quick vid today. Every time I do a video discussing Kratom, I always get a lot of good responses, a lot of good comments, and there's one particular that I wanted to call out and kind of address today. It was a really, really, really good comment, and it made me start thinking. And anytime I start thinking, it's a dangerous place to be. But nonetheless, I was kind of talking about yesterday how I had been going since I quit taking kratom. I had kind of been going hard in the paint on kratom, and maybe in some cases could be accused of painting a bad picture of it and stuff like that. Although I absolutely am not trying to do that, but I can see how it could potentially appear that way to some other people. So yesterday I got on and I gave a couple of instances, a couple of circumstances where I feel like I would encourage someone to try kratom, maybe as opposed to other things. And each instance that I gave, there was always kind of an asterisk next to those things. One of the instances I gave was if someone's in chronic pain, chronic physical pain, right? That can wreak havoc on your life. I know I've been in a situation where I've had long term, long lasting sort of a chronic pain issue. And I know it was the most difficult time of my life, hands down. Hands down. I thought I would lose my mind. I was facing my mortality, and there were times where I would go into complete anxiety attack mode, as though I thought my life was ending, sort of thing. It was bad. So, especially chronic physical pain can wreak havoc on someone's life. And let me just get straight to the comment first. Oh no, before that, if you enjoy this sort of content, subscribe to the channel if you would, and leave a comment. Also, like the video. So, um, but my asterisk next to saying that I would encourage someone who had a chronic pain issue to use kratom as opposed to the traditional heavier opiates or opioids that may be given by doctors. The asterisk was, but if you're an addict or if you tend to abuse opiates, may not be the best move. You may want to give it a second thought before trying it, because you could absolutely get to a place where you're also abusing kratom, right? And one of my subscribers, who she's been with me a while, at Melody Wolf. I hope you don't mind me calling out your name there, Melody, but you if you leave a comment on my public video, it's there for everyone to see anyway. So hopefully you don't mind. But it was a really good comment. She said, "Well, don't addicts deserve pain relief?" Question mark. And I got to thinking about it. It's like that's that's a fair point. That's a fair question. Um, interestingly enough, I think it's a very simple question with a very complicated answer, which many things are in life, and it is what it is. But I think the question is simple, but the answer is a little more complicated. Okay. So, what I will say to that is everyone deserves relief from physical chronic pain. And I can use myself as an example, but even a better example of that would be my own mother. So, my own mother was in a car accident back in, oh man, this had to have been the early 2000s, something like that. And a young teenager ran it. They were looking at their phone or something, and they ran into the back of my mother. Now, we thought at the time that she wasn't seriously injured, and she wasn't really. I mean, she actually went home the same day, and we just assumed, oh, you're going to be sore for a couple of days, no big issue. But what we found out later on is that it had wreaked some havoc on some of the disc in her back. Okay. And she began going to the doctor. This is before she was retired. Now she's retired from her career and all that stuff. But she still to this day has a pain patch, to help her deal with that chronic pain. But long story short, she goes to doctor after doctor after doctor. Finally, they look her over and they realize that she has some injuries to a couple of these discs that are in her back. And they referenced that back and likened it back to that accident, and that it probably took place during that accident, but then it just didn't really start to manifest and bother her. And it began to kind of degenerate from there, because a lot of times when something gets off, it's like a snowball effect, because you got gravity. You're walking around every day. The weight of your own body is, gravity is pressing down on those already, touchy, injured areas, and it can actually aggravate it and make it worse. So to make a long story short, she ends up having two, maybe even three back surgeries over a several year period. And I remember this being something that I was truly concerned for my mom's well-being. And when I say well-being, I mean her emotional well-being. And what I mean by that is just seeing how the being in the constant physical pain, what it was doing to, an otherwise happy go lucky, positive thinking sort of individual that she had always been. And it broke my heart to see that. And I remember her saying to me a couple of times, I just don't want to live like this. I, it was just a statement that she made, and I know my mom would never try to take her own life or anything like that, and she never has. This has been 10, 15 years ago now, and she's gotten it with the help of pain management and doctors and stuff like that. She's gotten it more under control this day and age, and she's more able to get by and live with it. But at that time, she was in a period of trying to get it under control, and it was just really, really tough on her, and it was really, really hard for her to live day to day to day to day with this chronic pain issue. So I do want to say right out of the gate, Melody, I do absolutely have a compassion for people who deal with or struggle with chronic pain. And again, I've had chronic pain issues myself. It did eventually go away, and after a surgery, and it did eventually get to a point for me where I wouldn't necessarily call it pain anymore. I sometimes notice something different there. I've had two hernia surgeries in the same place. Um, in my life. So the chronic pain had to do with that area. And still every once in a while I'll be like, it kind of burns a little bit or whatever. But they snipped a nerve down there when they went in and did what was called a groin exploration on me. And that helped quite a bit. That helped quite a bit. Now it's kind of like a phantom sort of, like it's a feeling that I'll get every once in a while, but my body doesn't necessarily identify it as pain, thank God. But before I got that surgery, I went through a period of probably 8 months where I woke up with this pain. I lived with the pain every day, and I went to bed at night with the pain every day, wondering what it was. I had been to doctor after doctor after doctor. All of them had question marks over their heads. I had had ultrasounds done, CAT scans, anything that you can think of in terms of being able to look at the inside of the body. I had had all of these tests done. Okay. No doctor could give me any sort of explanation. I mean, the best sort of explanation I got was, well, you have had an invasive surgery there. And when I had this initial surgery for that hernia, I was a 3-year old kid. Okay. So I was born in 1976. So this surgery took place in 1979, if you can imagine. Back then, there was no laparoscopic surgery where they make this little tiny little 1 inch incision, and then they go in with this tiny little microscopic camera and they look around in there and they fix what they need to, and then they sew up your tiny little 1 inch incision. And then, 3 or 4 days later, you're like, huh, shit, yeah, I'm good. This, no, this surgery took place when they filleted your ass open. Like, I have a scar probably this big, in my upper, like, groin area, lower ab area from where I had that hernia surgery 45 years ago as a 3-year-old kid, right? Um, and that's what it was that they think was bothering me when I got into my mid and late 20s and started having this chronic pain issue. Or at least that's the best explanation I could get, was maybe there, you had a major surgery there. Maybe there's some scar tissue over time has kind of grown around in there and maybe entrapped one of the nerves, and that's why you're feeling this pain on a regular basis. But it was something that was all day, every day. And when I tell you guys, it about sent me to the freaking insane asylum. I am not exaggerating when I say that. So when I saw Melody's comment, I wanted to make a response video about it, because I do want to be clear that no one should have to live with chronic physical pain. And I do know what it's like to live with chronic physical pain. And it nearly just about did me in. It was the only time in my life where I've had a doctor to put me on an antidepressant. I've never taken an antidepressant because I'm not typically, a person who becomes depressed. I'm not a depressive, type individual. That was the only time in my life that I had a doctor say, listen, you know, you're really going through this. This is really affecting you in a negative way. And I think it would benefit you to get on something that could maybe help, these negative thoughts and these negative consequences kind of circle out for you, and to kind of throw a monkey wrench in, or a stopping point in these cycle of negative thoughts that you're having. Because I was having these thoughts of, Jesus Christ, I'm going to live with this for the rest of my life. You got to remember, I was a 28-year-old man when this took place. I was young man, not even 30 years old yet, and I was experiencing this chronic pain. And the thought of living 20, 30, 40, 50, God knows, 60 more years, even possibly, with this pain just terrified me. And I didn't cope with it the best way, and I wasn't sure what it was. So, on top of it, I wasn't exercising because I was afraid whatever I did in the gym may aggravate the situation and make it worse. So I wasn't exercising, wasn't eating that healthy. Basically, what I was doing was covering it up and masking it with an opioid addiction. And it was during this period of my life where I really became, I would say, hooked on opiates, right? And hooked on pain pills. And so Melody's comment really did strike a nerve with me, no pun intended, because I do know what that's like. And I do it, whether you're an addict or not, you do deserve relief from chronic pain. But the reason that I say that it's a complicated topic and a complicated answer is because there's a cause and effect to everything, and it's all about weighing risk versus reward. And I would say the answer to that question is going to 100% of the time be in the mind of the beholder, or in the mind of the person who is dealing with it or experiencing it, right? Because you got, on one hand, well, nobody should have to live in physical pain, because the kind of, you know, people think of physical pain of, it's just like physical pain, oh, you're hurt. No, it's way more than that, because a chronic pain issue gets to a point where it's not just physical anymore. You have the representation of the physical pain there, But then, as a result of the constant physical pain, your mind and your emotions and your mental state begins to decline because you have all of this fear and anxiety about what is this? Where, in some cases people know what it is, but in some cases people don't know what it is. And which, in my opinion, makes it even worse. I would have rather known rather than have a bunch of doctors sit there going, huh, I don't know, man. I'm not real sure. Everything looks good. I mean, that's literally what I was getting. But but back to the point. So, you know, if if you have a chronic pain issue, no, an addicted person should not have to live with that. But when they take kratom or when they begin to take kratom, they have to weigh the risk against the reward that they will get from that. And what I mean by that is, okay, let's say kratom helps with your chronic pain issue. Let's say that you're able to take some kratom daily and you're able to get some relief from that chronic pain. It's a good thing, right? I think we all would agree with that. That's a good thing. Seems like the answer, okay? But my argument was simply that, but if you're an addict or if you're an addicted person who tends to overuse opioids or overuse something like kratom, my argument is that later on you could potentially find yourself in a situation where you have all of these other negative consequences and negative side effects to go along with the chronic pain. And you could always make the argument, well, at least you're not experiencing the chronic pain anymore. Like, yeah, that's true. But depending on how you're able to use it and how you may be able to moderate the kratom use, you could potentially put yourself in a situation where you've kind of got the pain under control, but then you start having other side effects of the heavy use of kratom. So I guess my overarching point in all of it was, um, I think it's okay for someone that has chronic pain to take kratom and to take it even long term. But I do think at the forefront of that, it needs to be said that moderation has to be in there somewhere, and we have to respect kratom for what it is, being that it's similar to an opiate, and the kind of presence that it has in your mind and in your body, it can absolutely get to a point where it's doing you more harm than good. And that would be my concern for someone who is taking it for chronic pain, who is also an expressed opioid addict. Okay. Now, if they're an opioid addict who can prescribe it to themselves, by example, take it 4 times per day. If you get a good 3 to 4 hours relief from your chronic pain of it, if you can stretch that out to 4 hours or so, and you take it, let's say you take it 8 o'clock in the morning, you get up, take it again when you get up around, or you take it again 12 o'clock, take it again at 4 o'clock, take it again at 8 o'clock at night. Maybe you have to wake up in the middle of the night, take one dose. You're taking 4 or 5, maybe moderate sized doses throughout the day. If you're able to moderate yourself like that, I don't see any problem with someone using kratom to help with chronic pain any more than I see a problem with someone being prescribed Vicodin or oxycodone or whatever it may be by a doctor to take 4 times a day, for example, by example. In fact, I would argue that kratom would probably be better. And I expressed this yesterday. A lot of these synthesized opiates have acetaminophen in them, which is known to be very toxic and horrible for your liver. I said yesterday, I'm surprised my liver still freaking works, man. It just goes to show you how resilient that, the liver is the first line of defense, and its job is to keep everything else safe, right? So a lot of times, if you're living like a toxic sort of lifestyle and you're intaking things that are toxic for the body, the liver takes the brunt of that, right? Because it's protecting your kidneys, it's protecting your heart, it's protecting, all of your other organs. And so with that, I'm surprised my liver still, works. And when I go to the doctor, my liver enzymes are okay. It blows my mind, to be honest with you, because I took quite a lot of pain pills and acetaminophen back in my day. I'm sure I've probably got some scarring on there. Um, but it's one of those things where whatever damage I did do, it shouldn't progress or get worse because I'm not taking stuff like that anymore. So where it is where it should stay, I guess is what I'm saying. But no, Melody, that was a really really good point, um, that I wanted to kind of expand on and let everyone know that, hey, I'm not saying that if you have an addictive sort of mindset and if you are a professed addicted opioid addict and you're also experiencing some sort of physical chronic pain issue, I'm not saying that, well, you shouldn't take anything ever. I I just I can't make myself go there. I can't say that. Being a person who has dealt with chronic long term physical pain, I couldn't say that to someone because I know how devastating it can be. And really goes back to what I said earlier. It has to be in the mind of the beholder, the mind of the person experiencing the pain. They have to get to a place where, for their own personal reasons, they weigh, you know, the risk versus the reward. Meaning, okay, well, if I take this kratom, the physical pain goes away, but one or two things are going to be true on the other side of that coin. Either you're able to moderate it to a degree and kind of prescribe it for yourself, take a moderate amount several times a day to control that pain, but not anymore, not in excess, not, dosing every hour or every 2 hours or, going overboard with it. Because if you get into that sort of cycle of doing it, my fear for someone would be that for one thing it wouldn't have the same effect because we all know that um, kratom is a tolerance killer, right? It increases your tolerance. The more you use it, the more your tolerance goes up for it. And people have absolutely claimed to get to a point where kratom just stopped working altogether. That they just, I never got to that point, but I've had plenty of people tell me on the channel that they used it so much and their amounts got to be so high that they literally just couldn't get any effects from it anymore. They could take a dose of kratom and 20 minutes later feel exactly the same as they did before they took it. Okay, and so we know that to be true as well. So the two things that could happen is either the person goes overboard with it, and if they do, being an addict mindset person, then they're going to have the chronic pain issue that could potentially come back as a result of them using kratom too heavily. Then on top of it, they're dealing with a very complicated mental, emotional, and physical addiction with kratom. For any of you out there who have taken kratom for a long period of time at any relative high dose, and then you try to stop, you already know what I'm talking about. It's hell on this planet. Okay, it can be really, really bad. And I would hate to see someone who starts taking it for chronic pain, but they're also an addictive mindset sort of person. So they're not really able to control it. And they end up using it for their pain, but then they end up using it in excess, get to a point where the kratom's not really working all that well anymore. And then next thing you know, the pain they're feeling, whatever it may be, starts to come back. And then on top of the physical pain, you have all of this other crap and side effects and restless legs and low energy and cold chills, cold sweats, sneezing, severe lethargy, severe depression. You start to experience all of these other things that we know can come when you start to lower your dose or come off of kratom altogether. So that was kind of my point in saying that, is that, even for a chronic pain patient, if you're a known opioid addict, there's a risk there. Okay, there's a risk with, and listen, it could be one of those things where you yourself have determined that it's a risk you're willing to take. You can't stand living with the pain. It disrupts your and decreases your quality of life to a degree where you just can't stomach life without it. And listen, I've been there. I've been there. I'm serious. I have absolutely been there. The circumstance I told you about, it about did me in. I mean, there were times where I literally thought I was going to have to just go to the hospital and have them send me somewhere. Just just admit myself. Just check in somewhere because it was really disrupting my life that badly. So I know how out of hand that can get. So, a person, even if they're an addict, and they're experiencing chronic pain, they may have decided that's just something they're, willing to do to get rid of the pain and to increase their quality of life, and I don't really have any argument for that or against that, um, except that, there would be a concern for me that they could get to a point where the kratom wasn't really working as well anymore, and then in addition to the physical pain, then they've added a very complicated opioid addiction into the mix as well, which we already know can potentially aggravate things and make things worse as opposed to making things better. Okay. And, there's other things. When you use something like that on a regular basis, it actually does things to your brain that actually makes you more sensitive to physical pain. Um, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, so I will not even attempt to explain this in a professional medical sort of fashion. But there's been tons of studies on it. There's been uh, tons of articles written by professionals, tons of studies, scientists who have said that taking something that has an opioid like effect that decreases pain signals in the body, in effect, on the flip side, can actually cause a person to be more sensitive to pain when they either try to stop or, lower their dose at all. So you're looking at stuff like that as well. You're looking at, um, a person could get to that point where, well, is it really this chronic physical pain, or is it, me and my body and my mind trying to come off of and deal with coming off of this addictive substance, because it all kind of works together there. The physical, the mental, it all bounces off of one another, and um, your physical and your mental well-being are in a symbiotic relationship. Okay, meaning one depends on the other. If your physical's not going really well and you got some physical pain going on, that's not just physical. Especially once you're looking at long term, it can also become mental and emotional, right? On the other hand of that, if you're completely fine physically and you start to have a lot of emotional and mental distress, whether that be depression, anxiety, stuff like that, people can actually develop physical pain. And physical pain can actually manifest as a result of long term anxiety that's not dealt with, long term depression that's not dealt with. And people, I mean, it they work together. They work together, and people who claim to experience severe depression or severe anxiety often also claim that it is accompanied with certain physical pains. If it's not at first, it becomes that way and they begin to manifest later, right? So it's, it's an easy question just to say, well, don't addicts deserve pain relief? The short answer and the obvious answer is yes, of course. Everybody deserves pain relief if the pain is something that you absolutely cannot live with. But there is a reality there that if the person is an addict and they're not an addict who is able to use it responsibly or somewhat moderately, you can, in the end, make an already bad situation even worse than it was. And you don't want to do that, you know? And I'm going to end with this. There, I think there is a point in some people's life at being an addict where they find this perfect kind of mix. And I'm telling you, if a drug addiction counselor heard me saying this right now, they would probably jump through the phone and choke me. Don't you tell people that. That's not true. But I believe it wholeheartedly. I think if you've been living with addiction your whole life, it has, done a lot of things, has impacted you negatively in a lot of ways. And let's say you have this physical pain that you need to deal with, and let's say you found kratom, okay, and kratom really tends to help with that. I do believe that even people who have addictive past or addictive mindsets can get to a point in their life where they're able to moderate it and they're able to, okay, this helps me. And I realize that if I'm going to be able to continue to use this, I have to put myself on a structure, on a schedule with this substance. And then they're able to do that. I think people get to a point and to an age and to a season of their lives, even addicts at times, where they are able to use something like that as though they are prescribing it to themselves moderately, somewhat responsibly. Okay. And again, it all goes back to that. It all goes back to moderation. It all goes back to responsibility. But, I guess my response, my overarching response to all of this is everybody deserves pain relief from physical pain. Okay. But none of us can deny the fact that if you are an addict or if you tend to abuse things like that, there is a risk of you abusing them. And if you abuse them, then my argument is that you've now taken something that is physical pain, and instead of, doing healthy things like meditating, exercising the best you can, eating healthy, drinking tons of water, therapy, journaling, writing a diary, music, instead of doing healthy, natural things to try to help your body to contend with that pain. And if you're just masking it and covering it and just putting a band-aid over what could potentially be a broken leg, right? That's what we don't want, But if you can couple responsibly, a few doses of kratom throughout the day to help with the physical pain issue, and then you're able to do the exercise. You're able, whatever is considered exercise for you. It doesn't have to be any certain level of exercise, but you're able to do the exercise, the eating really healthy, the meditation, breathing exercises, prayer, anything that is considered a natural way to help enhance and increase all of this and this too up here, So that's kind of basically it. That's basically it. I just wanted to expand on that because I thought that was a really good. It's quite often that I get a response on one of my videos where I'm like, okay, yeah, I didn't really address that. I didn't really touch on that or expand on that, and I should because it's a really, really good question to ask. But that's kind of my response, Melody. And, we're all adults. Everybody's an adult. You're the one that has to live with yourself. I have to live with myself. Everyone has to live with themselves. So I would never judge anybody or choosing to continue to take kratom, whether it be for a physical pain issue or anything else. And absolutely, if you know you're addicted, or if you know if you're an addict, or if you tend to abuse things like that, but yet you still feel like that's the best option for you, and you still feel like that's adding value to your life because your life is unwinding with this treacherous physical pain that you're feeling, absolutely take the kratom. Take the kratom. If it helps you, and if you can lay down at night and you feel good about where you are with it and what it's doing for you in your life and helping to thwart the issue with chronic pain that you're having, then I am all for it 100%. Whether you are a professed addict or not, makes no difference. Makes no difference. I just want everybody to have a healthy relationship with it. I just want everybody to be happy. Anybody that does mess with it, I want them to try to have the best, most healthy relationship with it possible. That's all. And I'm not saying that a person who is an addict can't have that. I'm not saying that. Um, I can only speak from what my experience was with it. But again, you know how I am on here. I don't ever say, well, because it affected me this way and I wasn't able to do this, then that's the way it is for all of you and you and you and you and you. No, I don't. I don't believe that, for one thing, because we're all different. In so many ways, we're all different. Everybody has their own unique set of uh, circumstances, their own unique set of abilities, their own unique set of coping skills, their only unique set of just an ability to deal with life and substances and all the different things floating around in there that makes up someone's whole life. But that was a damn good question. I mean, it must have been because I've been talking for 36 minutes. I gotta go. I'm pretty sure I'm about to run out of storage space anyway. But I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'm gonna go watch this. Got some family coming over. Gonna watch this Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight. Let's go, Mike Tyson. But anyway, love all of you guys. I appreciate the continued support. Continue to do that if you would. And that's it. I gotta go. All right. See you guys later.